a young child were the men in the orange jumpsuits. Captured prisoners of war, usually private contractors or journalists, held hostage by insurgent groups as pawns to make various demands, only for them to be eventually executed. The name Kenneth Bigley is forever etched in my mind. The imagery of his captured state and pleas for help remain in my memory. Kenneth Bigley, born on the 22nd of April 1942, was a British civil engineer working for Gulf Supplies and Commercial Services, a Kuwaiti company working on reconstruction projects in Iraq. On the 16th of September 2004, along with his colleagues Jack Hensley and Eugene Armstrong, both of whom were US citizens, were captured by an insurgent group by the name of Tawhid and Jihad under the command of Abu Musab al-Zarqawi. Abu was a Jordanian jihadist who ran a terrorist training camp in Afghanistan. He became known after going to Iraq and being responsible for a series of bombings, beheadings and attacks during the Iraq War, reportedly turning an insurgency against US troops in Iraq and contributing to the Shia-Sunni civil war. He was sometimes known by his supporters as the Sheikh of the Slaughterers. Zarqawi took responsibility on several audio and video recordings for numerous acts of violence in Iraq, including suicide bombings and hostage executions. He opposed the presence of US and Western military forces in the Islamic world, as well as the Western world's support for the existence of Israel. In late 2004, he joined Al-Qaeda and pledged his allegiance to Osama bin Laden. As well as targeting Western military personnel, he also declared an all-out war on Shiites in Iraq. Shia Islam, or Shiism, is the second largest branch of Islam, with Abu being a Sunni Muslim. On the 7th of June 2006, Zarqawi was killed attending a meeting in an isolated safe house around 5 miles north of Bakuba. 2 US Air Force F-16 fighter jets identified the house, and the lead jet dropped 2 500-pound guided bombs onto the safe house, killing Zarqawi as well as 5 others. But nevertheless, as mentioned, Kenneth Bigley was captured on the 16th of September 2004 along with his colleagues. Days before their capture, the men knew that their home was being watched and realized that they were in great danger when their Iraqi house guard informed them that he was leaving due to threats made by militias for protecting American and British workers. Kenneth Bigley and his 2 American colleagues, despite the risk, decided to stay in the house, and after a few days, the men were kidnapped. On the 18th of September 2004, the fate of the 3 men was revealed to the world. The extremist group, Tawhid and Jihad, released a video of the 3 men kneeling in front of the Tawhid and Jihad banner. The kidnappers said that they would kill the men within 48 hours if their demands for the release of Iraqi women prisoners held by coalition forces were not met. Eugene Armstrong was killed on the 20th of September 2004, and Jack Hensley was killed 24 hours later. Though Kenneth Bigley was not killed immediately, he was let to live for a further 2 weeks, despite an attempted intervention from the Muslim Council of Britain. Before Kenneth's execution, the group released a couple of videos depicting Ken Bigley begging for his life and asking for help from then British Prime Minister Tony Blair. In one video, while wearing an orange jumpsuit and locked inside a wire cage, Kenneth Bigley said, "I need you to help me now, Blair, because you are the only person on God's earth who can help me." By this time, rumours circulated that the British government at the time were trying to negotiate the release of Kenneth. However, another video was released with Kenneth Bigley stating the following: "Tony Blair is lying. He doesn't care about me. I'm just one person." Kenneth Bigley was eventually executed on the 7th of October 2004, around 2 weeks after the execution of his American colleagues. A couple of months after the men's executions, the chicken wire cage in which Bigley was filmed was found in November 2004 by US troops in a house in Fallujah. The US military stated that it found paraphernalia associated with hostage holding and torture, including shackles, blood-stained walls, and a torture chamber. The executions of Kenneth Bigley, Eugene Armstrong, and Jack Hensley were filmed and were subsequently uploaded to extremist websites and shock sites. The first videos to be released were the executions of Eugene Armstrong and Jack Hensley. It goes without saying that all three videos are extremely graphic and distressing, with many claiming that the beheading of Eugene is the worst of its kind online, and having viewed the video, I can understand why people came to that conclusion. But nevertheless, what happens in the actual videos? The Eugene Armstrong video is around 1 minute long, and it opens with Eugene's captors reading out a brief statement in Arabic. Eugene can be seen kneeling on the ground under a Tawhid and Jihad flag and is surrounded by 5 heavily armed insurgents. It's clear that Eugene knows that he's about to meet his untimely and cruel demise. He can be seen rocking back and forth, side to side, as he anticipates what he's about to be subjected to. At around 10 seconds into the video, Eugene is pulled to the ground by the men. One of the men pulls his hair back to expose his neck, while the other takes out a knife and starts slicing Eugene's throat. The screams of pain are horrifying as blood pools on the ground. As the terrorist cuts deeper into Eugene's neck, the tone of the scream changes into a higher pitch. Eventually, the screams turn into an animalistic high-pitched wheezing sound. The best way I can describe it, without meaning to disrespect the victim, is the sound of a pig in a slaughterhouse. In terms of sounds, I can see why people view this as the worst beheading video online. Eventually, Eugene is beheaded, with his body laying in a huge pool of blood. The executioner then holds Eugene's head up to the camera and then places it on his body. The video then ends. Jack Hensley was executed the day after Eugene, and once again, the process was filmed on camera for the world to see. The video is around a minute long, and much like Eugene, Jack can be seen kneeling on the ground under a Tawhid and Jihad flag, surrounded by 5 insurgents. This is the same location shown in the Eugene Armstrong video. A brief statement is read out on camera, and after a few seconds, Jack is pushed to the ground, and one of the insurgents takes out a knife and starts slicing at Jack's throat. Jack lets out a brief scream as his neck is being sliced. The knife is a lot larger than in the first video and seems to be much sharper. The terrorist grabs Jack's head by putting his fingers in Jack's eye sockets to pull his head back and make the beheading easier. After Jack is beheaded, his severed head is held up to the camera as blood drips to the ground. Jack's mouth appears to be still moving as his head is held up. His head is then placed on his body, which is where the second video ends. The final video to be released was the execution of Kenneth Bigley. The video itself is just over 3 minutes long, though noticeably, the video differs from the previous 2. The setting is different. In the first 2 videos, the executions appear to be carried out in the same white room by the same 5 men. However, the location in the Kenneth Bigley video is different. The backdrop is a brick wall rather than the white room. Kenneth can be seen kneeling before his captors under the Tawhid and Jihad flag, though this time there are 6 insurgents instead of 5. Even the style in which the video is filmed is different. They have Kenneth read out a statement, and the camera cuts to different angles, switching from close-ups of Kenneth to showing Kenneth kneeling in front of the insurgents. Kenneth reads out the following statement. Here I am again, Mr. Blair, and your government, very, very close to the end of my life. You don't appear to have done anything at all to help me. I'm not a difficult person. I'm a simple man who just wants to live a simple life with his family. These people, their patience is wearing very, very thin, and they're very serious people. Please please give them what they require, the freedom of the women in our prison. I beg you, if you do this, the problem is solved. The British people, more than ever I need your help. More than ever I need your voices to go out into the street and to demand a better life for the women that are in our prisons in Baghdad. I can't say a great deal more. I've said so many things to you at so many different times that all I can tell you now is that I have a very short time left. After Kenneth reads out his statement, one of the terrorists reads one of his own. The video then cuts forwards to the execution. Once again, it is different to the previous two. Kenneth is pushed to the ground as the men surround him, obscuring the view of the camera as they chant Allahu Akbar. Unlike the first two videos, Kenneth's execution isn't actually shown on camera. The video cuts forwards, showing Kenneth's bloody head being held high to the camera as the men maniacally chant. The video cuts forwards once again, this time showing Kenneth's bloody head placed on his body. This is where the video ends. For whatever reason, the style of filming, location, what was shown on camera, and even the behaviour of the executioners is drastically different from the first two videos. The reasoning behind this, we can only speculate. Naturally, many conspiracy theories surround the murder of Kenneth in particular, including theories that he worked for US intelligence and that his role as a private contractor was a mere cover story. But regardless, all these years later, the videos are still very hard to look at. In regards to my own personal experience, I remember the case of Kenneth Bigley well, despite only being 10 years old at the time. It was a huge news story here in the UK, and it was plastered all over mainstream media. As a dumb, naive 10-year-old, the Iraq war coverage was pretty terrifying, wondering whether we would get invaded and things of that nature. But as I got older, I soon realised that the occupation of Iraq was based on an utter lie. Hundreds of thousands of people killed for what? How certain authority figures aren't in prison is honestly beyond me. Quite frankly, these people are psychotic, and they belong in a cage. Just take a look at this clip. nothing short of disgusting, ultimately left.
I should try to stay out.
Ai. Quer fazer toca para o cão. Vamos ver isto.
Following the collapse of Yugoslavia, the Balkans erupted in violent conflict, often accompanied with ethnic cleansing and genocide. At Srebrenica, thousands of Bosnian men and boys were massacred by Bosnian Serbs in a bid to create a greater Serbia. In today's video, we will be looking just how such a complex and violent war could take place, just what happened to so many, and the consequences of those responsible. It is perhaps helpful to start with a description of the dissolution of the Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia in 1992. Yugoslavia was incredibly diverse, with 2 alphabets, 5 main religions, and 6 federal states that formed a whole. The country was formed with the notion that all ethnic groups within the border were equal, as all played a part in expelling the Axis forces during the Second World War. 6 large autonomous republics were formed, with 2 autonomous regions. The country was led by Josip Tito, who was the major source of stability. During the 60s and 70s, efforts were made to decentralize power from the communist central government to the 6 republics. Those 6 republics were drawn up along rough ethnic and religious divides. Though, as time would go on, many people would move and settle all over Yugoslavia. Notably, each republic was given control of its own armed forces. On Tito's death, with no single individual nor any institution was capable of taking the reins, resulting in a joint presidency being established. 8 representatives from the Republic and autonomous zones were to rule by simple majority between themselves. Each of the republics sought their own goals, such as Serbia pushing for more power, Bosnia and Herzegovina looking for independence, and Croatia seeking economic freedoms and not to have to support the polar regions. As the Cold War ended, vital funds from both the West and the East dried up. As inflation took hold, the country plunged into a recession. A number of politicians, notably Serbian President Slobodan Milosevic, sought to call for a greater Serbia, bringing in regions that had large populations of ethnic Serbs and stoking ethnic divisions during the economic troubles. Xenophobia against non-Serbs was rampant, particularly against Albanians, the largest non-recognized ethnic group in Yugoslavia. What's more, it was not enough that territory was brought into the Greater Serbia, but also that non-Serbs were expelled. Serbia sought to control Macedonia with a puppet government, as the 2 autonomous regions of Kosovo and Vojvodina were within Serbian borders. Serbian interests were pushed through the joint presidency. Other republics sought to split from Yugoslavia, with Croatia, Macedonia and Slovenia setting independence referendums in 1991, which were accepted. When the Croatian and Slovene referendums were passed in 1991, the Serbia armed forces launched attacks on the both newly formed countries, whilst Serbian paramilitary groups worked alongside the Serbian army. Whilst the conflict in Slovenia would last only 10 days, the war in Croatia would last until 1995. Against the backdrop of the breakup of Yugoslavia, the Republic of Bosnia and Herzegovina sought to seek independence. The multi-ethnic Socialist Republic of Bosnia and Herzegovina was made up of three main ethnic groups. These were Muslim Bosniaks, who made up 44% of the population, Orthodox Christian Serbs, 31%, and Catholic Croats, 17%. On the 15th of October 1991, the Republic declared independence, with a referendum for independence following on the 29th of February 1992. A number of Bosnian Serbs boycotted the referendum, with the results favouring independence. Ethnic Serbian politicians had previously split from the coalition government and sought to create their own country, creating what would be known as the Republic of Srpska, headed by Radovan Karadzic. Whilst the Croatian Democratic Union Party attempted to create a similar region known as the Croatian Republic of Herzegovina. As these states within states were not approved by the Bosnian government, there was a risk of further conflict over perceived threats to the ethnic groups within them. Despite the growing conflict, Bosnia and Herzegovina was recognized internationally as a sovereign state, whilst Croatia and Serbia colluded to split the new country, with the goals of creating Greater Croatia and Serbia. In the months after Bosnia and Herzegovina's declaration of independence, Bosnian Serb paramilitary groups sprung to action, whilst the Serbian government set in its de facto army, the Yugoslav People's Army. This army would be rebranded as the Army of Republika Srpska. This force would have great success in taking over great swathes of Bosnia and Herzegovina. But, whenever the army advanced, Bosnian Serbs would engage in ethnic cleansing of Bosniaks and Bosnian Croats in the newly conquered areas. The most infamous of these ethnic cleansings was the Srebrenica massacre in July of 1995. By 1995, the war in the Balkans had been raging for 4 years. The major powers of Britain, France, and the United States all pushed for the conflict to end. Yet, few were in favour of any meaningful military engagements. Thousands of refugees had fled ethnic cleansings, many reaching what were termed the three safety enclaves. These were Gorizda, Djepa, and Srebrenica. In 1993, the United Nations had already moved in, with hundreds of blue helmet peacekeepers to protect the refugees. The United Nations toughened its stance and demanded that peace in Bosnia would only be possible if there was a full withdrawal from all territories seized by the use of force and ethnic cleansing. But by 1995, the United Nations had seemingly given up on the 1993 declarations, with the powers of Britain, France, Germany and Russia instead favouring a partition of Bosnia between a Serb enclave state and a Muslim Croat federation. Pressure was placed on Bosnian President Alija Izetbegović to concede Srebrenica and other safe areas in exchange for peace, withdrawing the borders and conceding to Serbian demands. Izetbegović had been open to this idea, and when broaching the subject with the authorities in Srebrenica back in late 1993, he was flatly refused. In April of 1995, the Bosnian military commanders guarding Srebrenica were withdrawn and were forbidden from returning. Instead, the protection of Srebrenica was for the United Nations. Whilst some pushed for reinforcements, others called for UN troops to withdraw in order for airstrikes to be an option. However, the Bosnian Serb tactic of holding UN troops prisoners often made such airstrikes infeasible, resulting in airstrikes being indefinitely called off by the French, British and American leaders in May of 1995. The Bosnian Serb plans for the area were not unknown to the world. The Colonel General of the Army of Republika Srpska, Ratko Mladic, had indicated to the head of the United Nations peacekeeping force, General Rupert Smith, that he had desires to take Srebrenica, and in speeches about the Muslim Bosniaks had indicated he wanted them to completely vanish. On the 2nd of June, Mladic ordered the destruction of the Muslim forces in the safety zones. Muslim forces was understood to mean all Muslim men and boys of fighting age. Whilst American and British intelligence had learned of this plan, such information was not shared with the Dutch UN peacekeeping force in the area. On the 6th of July, Mladic launched his attack on the safety zones. Some 2,000 Republika Srpska soldiers, outnumbered by the Bosniak defenders, made steady gains against the beleaguered resistance. In the following days, the 5 United Nations peacekeeping observation posts fell to the Bosnian Serb advance, with the Dutch peacekeepers retreating or being captured. As a result of the incursion, thousands of Bosniak civilians fled north into the towns of Srebrenica. Reports of looting, houses being burned to the ground, and the summary execution of refugees was widespread. On the 8th of July, leading United Nations generals and the only ones with authority to issue airstrikes were told to take holidays. On the 9th of July, President Karadzic ordered the taking of Srebrenica. The international community had not responded to the attack, and Bosniak resistance was not at all stopping the advance. On the 10th of July, United Nations Lieutenant Colonel Kermans had urgent request for air support from NATO forces. Yet, no such airstrikes ever took place, due to the hostages held by the Bosnian Serbs. On the 11th of July 1995, a column of Bosniak soldiers and male civilians made their way from Srebrenica with hopes of regrouping with the other Bosniak forces, and in a bid to escape execution. Meanwhile, around 25,000 Bosniak refugees from Srebrenica were gathered at the Potocari compound, seeking protection within the United Nations Forces headquarters. Thousands had managed to cram inside the building, with many more camping outside. The vast majority were women, children, and the elderly. By the afternoon of the 11th of July, the Republika Srpska forces, notably the Drina Corps and leadership, had control of Srebrenica and was strolling the streets. Amongst them was Mladic. The Dutch UN forces were ordered to allow the Republika Srpska forces to arrange the transport of Bosniak civilians, even going as far as to provide them 30,000 litres of petrol to Mladic's forces. From the Potocari compound, Bosnian Serb soldiers separated the men from the boys, and the women from the girls. During this sorting, SA was commonplace. In many cases, family members were made to watch their loved ones being assaulted. According to 14-year-old Fatima, I was the first in the line. A soldier came over and yelled at me, "You, come here." I didn't even realize he was calling me. Then, he made my father come and stand in front of me. It wasn't until I saw the tears in my father's eyes that I understood what was about to happen. They were going to take me away, and they wanted him to see. They marched me into the woods with my hands up. I saw a lot of Serbian soldiers who were wearing thick masks made of socks. They didn't want their faces to be seen. Summary executions were carried out amongst the crowds, and much of these executions would be witnessed by the Dutch UN soldiers, and even when such events were recounted to UN observers, little could be or would be done to stop the murders. The women and girls were loaded onto buses to be sent further north to Muslim-controlled areas, though some reports include some buses being driven to Serb-controlled regions. The men who were taken from Potocari had all of their personal effects, such as IDs, confiscated and thrown into a pile. Once the last bus full of prisoners left, the effects were set on fire in full view of the United Nations soldiers, contradicting any assurances that the men and boys would be screened for those who had committed war crimes. The men and boys who were separated would never be seen again. There was a deliberate
We're
plan
done
to
here.
capture all Bosniak men, whether or not they were of military age. Both young children and old men would meet the same fate as those of military age. Busloads of men and boys were sent to designated locations, whether that be at a local football pitch, abandoned warehouses, or fields. These would act as holding sites for the captives. Treatment at these sites was poor, with little in the way of food or water. Groups would be taken, stripped of their shoes and some of their clothing, had their hands tied behind their backs, and were transported to the kill sites. These groups of men and boys were lined up and machine gunned. Survivors would then be searched for, and if found, would be shot again. Bulldozers were then used to pile the bodies into mass graves. This process would be repeated throughout the day. There were even reports of Serb soldiers asking their officers if they could sit down and take a break, exhausted from the constant massacring of civilians. One of the few to survive the killing fields, Mevludin Oric, recalled the following: "I just threw myself on the ground. My nephew shook and died on top of me. When they finished shooting, they went to get other groups. They kept bringing new rounds of men. I could hear crying.
Get ready to set sail!
Nice to see you, Commander.
It went on all day. The Serbian forces were eager to locate the column of soldiers and civilians attempting to escape the area, with officials claiming these were the very worst of the Bosniak criminal elements. The column would split into two following artillery strikes and would face the Republika Special Forces on the 11th of July. Firefights broke out as the Bosniaks attempted to avoid capture and continue their escape. But as time
Eu com mongoloide. Cada doença. Não vai. Agora vai já comida. What the fuck?
Be on your guard out here.
lot of people on the internet enjoy dunking on others for simply enjoying something different to them. I love Fallout 4, but just because it isn't as good as New Vegas or 3, apparently I should treat it how Amber Heard treats her beds. I won't starve myself of enjoyment just because a piece of art or media has some bad parts. Does House of Cards still bang, even though Kevin Spacey also bangs those under the legal age of consent? Yes. Do I still bump the Ignition remix even though R. Kelly starts his ignition in the wrong kinds of traffic? Yes. Do I still play new Ubisoft games despite knowing that while being developed their employees were suffering from abuse and harassment? No, I don't actually, because they were shit in the first place. So you best believe that a few strongly opinionated sweaty virgins on the internet won't stop me from enjoying Todd Howard's fine art that is Fallout 4. Meet John, our hero of the Boston wasteland. His son was kidnapped because apparently even in the apocalypse, not pulling out is still coming back to bite me in the arse. Now we will stop at nothing to get him back, and everyone who gets in our way will pay the price because of my stupid build. My build, you ask? Well, I'm fully spec'd into agility, which means you so much as slightly inconvenience me, I'll light you up with better accuracy than a bullied American high school student.
You hand over everything you got in them pockets, or accidents start happening to you. Big, bloody accidents.
People really think just because my face looks like it had one too many sunbeds, they can say whatever they want to me. When are they gonna fucking learn? Whee! Pull! There's no way this works. Oh, it works. Just killed him through the bridge. Despite being built like a 2D drawing, John is also stronger than any Russian Olympian post-steroids. So you know every child in the vicinity is getting body slammed. You also know that I had to max out the luck skill because it's the most ridiculous thing in the entire game. I mean, just look at the stuff that can happen. Wait, how did you... No way did I get a deflect off one of these guys and then it hit you and... Shut up, machine gun turret. Oh my god. So yeah, don't be fooled by John's pleasant outfit of a light blue sleeveless shirt tucked into high-waisted yellow shorts and white loafers. He's a man not to be messed with. I mean, just look at the fedora. He wears this because his great-grandfather was 1/4 Italian, so that mafia blood is running thick through his veins. I mean, that Italian blood also means he can't resist some good spaghetti and a full-bodied dry red like Sangiovese. Where we left off in the story, we just killed Kellogg, the man who kidnapped our son. Bye-bye, Kellogg. This encounter blew the whole legs of the story wide open like your mother on a Saturday night. You see, Kellogg's toxic personality trait is that when you threaten his life, he gives up the information on the Institute, the Wasteland's biggest secret. They're kind of like the Illuminati of the Fallout world, and that's apparently where Sean is. The only problem is, nobody knows how to get in or out, or where their base of operations actually is. To learn more about the Institute, we had to travel to a place called Good Neighbor, where I guess I'll just be giving out platonic handjobs until somebody tells me some information. Good Neighbor really makes me think it's not actually that good of a neighborhood. If the name of a location has positive words in it, chances are it's actually a terrible place using false advertising in the name to attract settlers. This was...
Hey guys, so a while bar as well, click apply or shortcuts, you can make your own. Xbox app doesn't explain this, so it can be, I can understand why people won't be able to figure it out, because I couldn't figure it out either for a while. But yeah, you just right click, invite to party or join party, that's how you get into that party. So a lot of people were saying that they were having issues connecting to the party, and it's a weird one, but what definitely works, I had loads of comments on my last thing saying like I never thought that you get into that party. So a lot of people explain this, so it can be, I can understand why people won't be able to figure it out, because I couldn't figure it out either for a while. But yeah, you just right click, invite to party or join party, that's how you get into that party. So a lot of people were saying that they were having issues connecting to the party, and it's a weird one, but what definitely works, I had loads of comments on my last thing saying like I never thought that this would work, but it does work. So to help fix the problem of connecting to parties, you want to come down to the bottom right here to date and time. You want to right click on it, scroll up to adjust date and time, and you want to make sure that set the time automatically and set the time zone automatically. You want to make sure that both of these are put on. I don't know why, but I think if somebody else has them both set to automatically on and you try and join their party, it kind of messes things up. I don't know why, but it just works. Trust me. Loads of people commented on my last video saying that they couldn't believe that this actually works. But yeah, let's move on. Now you're in the party, you're with your friends, but there's some audio issues going on. They can't hear you, you can hear them, but they can't hear you, like, etc. Like, the Xbox app isn't great, so, and they don't explain you how to fix it. So if we go up to our profile here, but it's your because say if you're just chilling and you're not playing on your Xbox, but you put your headphones in, you've got your head
was first achieved when Icelandic man Eric the Red discovered the country of Greenland and named it Greenland in hopes of tricking many people to move there. Little did they know it wasn't green and regularly had temperatures below freezing, so those moving there with families and small children would definitely die of hypothermia. Possibly the greatest troll of all time by our boy Eric. On my way to Good Neighbor, I take down a vertibird as those military bumming brothers who suck each other's steel have got beef with me. They thought they could use their military presence to move in here and start unethically killing the locals. What is this, a third world country? If you also hate the Brotherhood of Steel, leave a like. Also, if you like the Brotherhood of Steel, leave a like. If you're also indifferent towards the Brotherhood of Steel, leave a like. Upon my arrival in Good Neighbor, a dude by the name of Finn tries to sell me health insurance. Being from the UK, I was unfamiliar with this thing you call health insurance. If I need to go to the doctors, it's a very simple process of calling at 8 AM for 2 weeks straight until I get an appointment 3 months in the future, and that appointment gets cancelled the day before I'm due to go, so then I have to reschedule for another 2 months in advance, by which point my original problem that I phoned the doctors for has either disappeared or has progressed so far that it is now life-threatening. Anyway, I blow Finn's head off because he was smoking, which is terrible for your health, so his insurance company would have surely collapsed when he had to make a claim on it for his own health. You're welcome, Finn. I just saved you from bankrupting yourself. I am here for your financial benefit. Old matey Hancock agrees that that was the wise decision to make, so his headless body just kind of lays in the street. He's like, alright, come over to my office, you handsome devil. And I'm like, yeah, okay, what's going on? And he tells me to check out a gaff called Pickman's Gallery, and he'll reward me. Cheers, boss, I'll go look at that in a bit, but right now I want to find out more about the Institute. You see, I just so happen to keep a piece of Kellogg's brain matter for goodwill. Now it's coming in handy because there's this place called the Memory Lab where I can hook up this piece of brain matter and look into Kellogg's memories, so maybe now we can learn more. Boy, I really do hope I don't come across a memory of him taking an intimate shower. The first Kellogg memory I find is him just chilling on a blood-stained mattress reading a violent comic. Some would say this upbringing turned him into the murderous bounty hunter for hire that he was. But no, I disagree. You see, there is another memory of him playing Call of Duty and he goes 3-27. That was the one session that turned him into what he was, because video games are the real devil here. We discover that he was actually pretty nice to Sean. He didn't like touch him or anything weird like that. No, he kept him fed and healthy inside his spacious studio apartment in the city. So forgetting the possible PTSD of the kidnapping, it looks like Sean actually had a decent upbringing. Eventually someone from the Institute came and took him away, and that's when we figure out that the reason they're so secretive is because they teleport. There is no entrance to the Institute. They teleport in and out of the Institute. I wonder if that's where Tupac is hiding out. If we go to the Institute and Tupac is actually there, I'm going to be way more gassed to see him than I will be to see Sean. Like, sorry Sean, I know you're my son and all, but like, you didn't release bangers like Hit 'Em Up and Dear Mama. So now we know how to get in and out. All we needed now was one of those teleportation devices. To do this, we needed to talk to former Institute member who was now hiding out in the Glowing Sea. The Glowing Sea is basically a part of the wasteland which is too radiated for anyone to really inhabit. It's run down, broken, and a shadow of its former self, a place where no one wants to visit. Its only inhabitants are weird mutant animals and spice heads. It's basically the wasteland version of Grimsby. Before we went there though, I wanted to check out this Pickman's Gallery that Hancock told me about earlier. It's actually a lovely welcoming place with beautiful artwork scattered across the walls. Yes, it does have slight cracked in vibes, but what doesn't in the wasteland? There's obviously some raiders here, so I have to clear them out, and it's about halfway through this clear out process I start to get a little peckish. That's when I remember, it's the apocalypse, and nobody can stop me from eating a human being. In the real world, if I started tucking into my neighbour Doris, I run a 50-50 chance of people either calling it a brave new step for euthanasia, or a horrible crime which I should be sentenced to prison for life for. So I gnaw on this dead guy's leg, and it's actually not the worst thing I've ever eaten. Salt and pepper wouldn't go amiss, or you know, one of those seasoning packets like jerk chicken, but you can't be fussy in the wasteland. It becomes clear that most of these people I didn't actually kill. They were dead long before I got here. That's when I find that on the bedside table.
No, tak se poutel.
Lower the oars! Faster! Maximum speed!
Gasta muito.
This world. What in Hades was that? Doesn't look like I'll find out through this door just yet. Maybe another time.
Thank the gods you came.
What happened? Where's the rest of your crew?
Pirates! They killed most of us, but they took my brother. Please, you must help him.
I'll help find your brother.
I'm not a sailor, I'm a carpenter. So's my brother.
Interesting.
I've worked as a shipwright.
Then it's a deal. We'll find... Pirates took his brother. He'll work for us if we rescue him.
Then let's hunt some pirates! Put your backs into it, men! Roll like the Cerberus is snapping at your heels! everyone at ease.
Should be careful. High security here.
That's not right. What?
Hmm.
I know where the Archer's hiding! Shit! Find cover! Can't come over the...
Malaga, what do you see?
Haven't seen a trace.
We'll find it. Keep searching.
Don't worry, I'm not giving up.
I'll get that Archer. Would have sworn. Well, what are you seeing?
Yeah. Now I've got you.
The Archer's over there! Where could they be? They're shooting from over there! No one here. She has to be here.
Oh.
Your brother sent me.
That fool. Always sending someone else to do his dirty work. How bad is it?
You're going to be fine.
You're kind. A terrible liar, but kind.
What message should I give your brother?
Tell that fool of a brother I...
Ah, a garrafa d'água. Foi a garrafa d'água. Isto aqui vaza muito. Aliás, isto aqui vaza muito. Estava fechada e molhou-me todo aqui um bocadinho.
Não estava bem fechado. Só uma cada vez pior.
Ai, não. O chão estava fora, tem uma cadeira como toca. Ai, jumps. Tens camas. Eu já vou dormir. Já mando-te. Tchau. Agora estás aí.
Did you find my brother? Where is he?
He didn't survive. I'm sorry.
No, no, no! I curse you, gods!
There were no gods on that ship. Only pirates.
I begged him to come on this trip. He hated the sea!
A spear in my hand often helps me forget the pain. We'll put a hammer in yours, if you honor your word.
Of course. There is nothing left for me here.
is, my friend. It sure is.
Ready the oars! Oars in! Get that sail up! Hang on tight! Rowers, to your oars!
You should pick up that sounding.
Start rowing! Drop the sail! Sails up! Battle positions! Archers!
We need to fire again.
Ready arrows! Release now! Ready your bows! Now! Attack! Weapons out! Reform the dogs! Let's move! Forward! We've reached full speed! Sail down! Rowers in position! We've got a fight coming! Be ready! Hit them with your spear! Less speed! Faster! Increase speed! Loose spear!
There will be more battles.
should have left me alone. Archers! Ready yourselves! More oars! Onward! Ship your oars! Get the oars out! We're moving now! Sails! Now!
What's the weather?
Sails! Ready oars!
Hold steady! Poseidon and Zeus are angry and must be feuding over who should sink the ship. We should have sacrificed the gold before leaving.